So now we're in the third installment of the X franchise, and so far, I have no real complaints. It stays in familiar territory while setting itself apart from the original Blue Bomber, being a lot more faster and explosive. No, really, just look at that Cerbert scoop of pain. Mega Man X was our first entry, and already it made a huge impression moving on to the SNES. Fun and easy to learn, but hard to master, while providing fun level design, bosses, and weapons. The more time you devote to the game, the more accessible it'll be, or you'll just become numb to its beating. It's an acquired taste, to be sure. X2 fell under the same umbrella. Nothing was changed drastically. It's not a bad thing entirely, but here's my take on sequels. A sequel should take what was broken or bad from the original and either tweak it or completely take it out, while taking what was fun about the game and revamp it, giving us more of what we like, but also experimenting what could make the experience even better. X2 didn't necessarily do that, so that's why I thought the game was decent. But this is Capcom we're talking about though, following up with a new Mega Man entry every year. I mean, I guess you could consider the X series a sequel to the original Blue Bomber, amping up the gameplay and making it a lot more prettier, and I mean pretty. Yeah, I'll never get over that, shut up. But here we are in X3, our final entry in the 16-bit saga before we head into the gorgeous sprite era Capcom is best known for. So why don't we go ahead and jump right in, y'all. Let's get down and funky with Mega Man X3. So the game centers around Dr. Doppler. He managed to fully eradicate any Maverick programming found in Reploids with his neurocomputer. With this, Dr. Doppler was ready to create a new utopia for Reploids called Doppler Town, marking a new era. But why do I get the suspicious feeling that this is gonna go all wrong just because of course it will? X just can't catch a break. The once reformed Mavericks go crazy once more and start blowing up the Hunter headquarters. And now it's up to X and Zero to spring up to action and stop the madness which Dr. Doppler is most likely behind, as we lovingly destroy the Mavericks like a good boy pacifist X we are.
Stop it right there. Do you know how hard we worked to rebuild this world?
We hunt down Dr. Doppler, who is in fact the cause of all this. That's right, guys, it was him all along. We gotta put an end to his plans and turn him into the hands of oh, okay, who am I kidding? It's Sigma. Okay, the real bad guy is Sigma. We all know this. About halfway through the game, he even flat out states that his master was defeated twice before. Also, yeah, I beat the guy in the scrap twice before and you underestimated X still? Bitch, he doesn't evoke fighting, but he's a walking, talking death sentence when he needs to be. You're an idiot.
I'm here to kill you. Please, I don't want to fight. Kill you. Please, I don't want to fight. Kill you.
This is still a basic Mega Man X story to the core, but there's a few things I like to take note. It's revealed that Sigma's true form is a virus. Yeah, that bar frame thingy there. So this does explain why he keeps coming back and not staying dead. And it also explains why Doppler turned evil in the first place. You know, the whole debacle, it wasn't even his doing, and I feel bad for the guy. And while we are on the subject, even though it is old technology, I still really like wireframes. Some of my childhood consisted of those Atari games that had nothing but bright sticks and a black screen. Games like Black Widow and Battlezone. X2 and X3 had some pretty good use to it, making for some cool moments and enemy designs. More notably, the CX4 chip that was installed to the cartridges, which most likely explains why the games cost whatever organ you value the most. Now the next thing I want to discuss, I mean I sort of saw this coming some shape or form, I mean I have seen them fight before, but it's just brought up out of complete left field here.
How long is this gonna go on?
In the end, it's stated that X will have to fight Zero some point in the future to achieve world betterment, but what did Zero do? Was he working with Sigma behind the scenes? Is he secretly evil? Is he just a more of an edgy X? Well, yes. But not once did we find any attention that Zero could have been the baddie all along. He helped us this far, and we even got through the trouble of hooking him back up together. Unless there's something I'm missing, this makes jackrap sense. I get that this is just building up more suspense and anticipation for the future games, but man, did they bake their cake and eat it too. Like I mentioned a while ago, Mega Man games followed a yearly release, even with the new X franchise around. But sadly, around the development of X3, the new era of gaming was rising, the 5th generation of consoles. the Nintendo 64, and the Sony PlayStation, just to name a few. Games that were filled with polygons galore and a lot more pop overall. This was the start of the 3D era. Everything had to be in 3D to at least get approved by PlayStation. So it goes without saying that X3 was the last game on the SNES, and the 4th generation was withering out, so Capcom wanted to prepare and get ready for the new era, making the games prettier and hotter. And to this day, the Capcom PS1 game still rivals realistic games nowadays. I'm not joking, y'all. Style and a sense of identity is important if you want to make a memorable and fun game. Persona 5, Kirby Star Allies, Bayonetta, Hollow Knight, and the sake of relevancy, Street Fighter 3 Alpha, Darkstalkers, Marvel vs. Capcom, and of course, Mega Man. This is the era where Capcom ruled and shined like the sun crashing into the stratosphere, and it's something I'll never dump on Capcom for. Everything else, sure, but hey, we all have our prime. So to prepare for this new generation, most of X3 had to be made by Mitakuchi Engineering Gods. I'm sorry if I butchered the name. Coochie, please. Thankfully, it wasn't their first time working with the Blue Bucket of Bolts. They're responsible for most of the Mega Man games on the Game Boy and Mega Man The Wily Wars for the Mega Drive. So with some past experience with the franchise, I wonder how they managed to pull off X3. Or should I say, what the actual fuck happened here? I'm not sure if the Game Boy games are a lot harder than the traditional lineup, and I know Mega Man games are hard to begin with, but Jesus sliced overpriced Christ, I could barely do anything here. And so much has been downgraded that X1 and X2 did just fine. For starters, the enemies are brutally designed and unfairly placed. Either the enemies have pathetic defenses and have difficult means of getting by, flying enemies scattered all over the map shooting random rockets, enemies with unpredictable attacks and phases, this bitch, and get used to these jagoffs, you'll be seeing them a lot. And all this together is in fact a big deal because right off the bat, you are way too small and shrimpy with the durability of a twig. Look how much damage these goons can do on contact. 6 feet, please. I am acting like one of those Karens at Walmart. 6 feet, please. Follow the one-directional aisles, please. Wear a goddamn mask. In the past games, you could beat most of the Mavericks with your standard blaster, and the levels gave you a chance to explore and get stronger, but here, it's all about survival. It's all about fight or flight, but if you're planning on fleeing, good fucking luck, because these guys, again, will escort you to hell personally. The Mavericks are just as annoying. You can die in 3 to 4 hits. They do that much damage, and they pull out the most biggest bullshit I've seen so far. Playing this game requires great patience. You won't be given too much leeway to dash and go fast like in the past games. You have to keep your guard up and take this as slowly as possible. On top of that, if you want to survive, upgrades in the game are mega mandatory. Find as many hard tanks and sub tanks as you can. You need these more than ever. But hey, at least 2 of the 4 sub tanks are piss easy to find. But let that be a sign of what's ahead. Broken controllers and apathy. Once you finish 2 Mavericks off, Dr. Dobbler sends out his henchmen to beat you up and take your lunch money. We have Bit, Bite, and hey, Vile's back. These guys are essentially the X-Hunters from X2. They appear at different stages, and you gotta find them if they stand in your way. Except now, you can't see which stage they're occupying, and in each stage, you'll run into these doors that either will be a level's mini-boss, nothing at all, it's like they're jerking your chain, or most likely, Bit or Bite. And once you do come across them, you kinda have to fight them now. These guys are pretty mandatory. And since you barely have any upgrades on you, you may not have their weaknesses, these guys are as tough as nails, and when you die, you have to start all the way back to the start, and you're bound to take some damage, I don't care how good you are, and you're pretty much stuck here until you get a game over. So, yeah, I'm stuck. Go back to the stage. Yup, they're still here. I'm stuck. Oh man, I would love to go see if there's any hard tanks or sub tanks to find, or I don't know, I want to skip these jerkwads, but I can't do that. I see them no matter where I go, and I can't find anything. So yeah, I've been stuck for a good 3 hours. I'm totally not tearing off my skin as we speak. I'm totally not holding a shotgun barrel to my face wishing for sweet release. I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh yeah, there's Vile. From what I can tell, he's located at Crushed Crawfish's and Bulk Catfish's stage, and he has really douchey ways of making you fight him. Oh, you dick. But he's not that terrible of a fight despite packing extra heat. His muscle machine is easy to dodge and his weakness is the Ray Splasher. Just make sure you use it at his second phase. If you somehow manage to evade these fights, the only downside is that you have to fight them on Dr. Doppler stage. Just as insignificant, if not more. Now the level designs can come across as boring and uninteresting to look at. I just want to get out of there ASAP. I can only think of a few that are alright. Blizzard Buffalo stages that at least looks pretty to look at. I'm a sucker for pinks and purples, alright? And the very beginning of Gravity Beetle stages where at least it's all about that. Man, I need to rewatch Top Gun. The only plus I can think of is how the stages seldomly mimic the stage alterations from X1. In Gravity Beetle stage, there's a huge metal box that's blocking a heart tank, but you gotta beat Blast Hornet first, and then the block moves away? Okay. And I forgot who you defeat first, but these red guys turn green and they only fire rockets? Well, that's neato. You know what, while we're on the subject of the stages, the music is... Well, I hope you like the hyper guitar from X2 because that's like the only instrument they use here. Neon Tiger stage is like the best example I can give you, and if you're an X fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What about Crush Crawfish? Vile's theme? Blast Hornet? Okay, that was fine. What about Zero's theme? Okay, that's the best one of the whole game. But yeah, I am very mixed on this OST. I can only cherry pick like 3 tracks in the game and the rest is completely unbearable. Now, the PlayStation and Sega Saturn versions did a slightly better job. I mean, Neon Tiger sounds 100 times better automatically. And you know what, while we're at it, it even had an opening FMV and FMVs for the game's Maverick intros. You know what? I wonder, since the X Legacy Collection lets me switch versions of the game, what if I switched it to the Japanese version? Oh, that's bullshit! God, even the weapons feel so short-sighted. I mean, you got a booger gun and a backwards chainsaw blade. Really, what is up with some of these? No, really, what is up with some of these? I found no use of these in combat at first. Well, besides the Ray Splasher, and this shield was a breath of fresh air. I mean, I could have experimented at first, but one tiny step out of my comfort zone and I snap in two because this game doesn't give me a chance! It was really on my second playthrough when I decided to take it slow and see what the weapons could really do. And you know what? After a while, I actually found multiple uses for each one. For the most part. The Gravity Well is really good for taking down flying enemies and bots hanging on walls. The Acid Burst is perfect for those goons who think they're too clever, and it even spits out additional shots in case you miss. The Frost Shield leaves an additional shuriken on the floor for whoever runs into it, and again, I totally forgot the Parasite Bomb was a thing. Well, what are you gonna use these mostly for? Of course, Maverick weaknesses. Once again, they become super nimble once you find the right weapon. Now you actually have to use a Tornado Fang to gain access to a certain spot in Blast Hornet stage to gain access to the riders, aka one of the biggest missed opportunities of the game. They're as situational as the past games, but less cool. And you think with 3 more riders to unlock, it would be more rad. No, legit, you can completely finish this game without any rider whatsoever. But if you want to collect everything, you will just have to use the regular rider and the frog rider. And that's it. I mean, they are pretty cool once you take control of them, but there's only certain parts of the level where you can gain access to them, and it can get really underplayed. If you find an area too short to access with your big gun weapon there, yep, fun time's over, kids. Go back to your chores. Hey, shut up. It's not my fault your mom died. Their real main purpose is finding heart and sub-tanks and pretty much nothing else, unless you count an extra health bar for the time being. Speaking of the upgrades, how are the armor parts in this game? The helmet locates any secrets in the map for you. The damage you take can be reused as multiple charge shots. You can dash twice and even upwards in the air, which is super duper duper delicious. I love this so much. Except for that. But it's all at a cost, at an infinitely much worse charge shot. Yeah, it's not that crunchy as the last one. No, really, why? X2 was just fine with a double charge shot. Why do we have to fire both of them simultaneously? Why, Capcom, you're a piece of garbage! But the game also adds chips for you to install for perks for your armor parts. Basically, upgrading the upgrades. There's a chip that lets you regain health if you stay still, there's one that you can dash an additional time, and one you can add an extra defense, but it all depends on the chip you find. But you gotta keep this in mind, you can only install one, and I only mean one chip, so choose carefully which upgrades suit you best. Or, if you want my advice, do not install any of these. I highly recommend trying to find everything in the game, every upgrade, armor part, and every rider. Trust me, it's not that hard. So that way, at Dr. Doppler stage, you can unlock the golden armor with all the upgrades installed. And now, one more subject before we go. I like to switch over to the biggest missed opportunity, and it's the reason why this game has murderous intent at first sight. Playable Zero. Oh yeah, baby! Zero is officially playable now. This is so awesome! I'm so sorry, X3 fans. The game is super duper good now. I love every second of it. I'm gonna have so much fun. Hey, just kidding, JK. Screw you, X3 fans. The game still stinks, and so does Zero. For starters, Zero has a much bigger health bar, added defense, and a double charge shot with a slash of a Z-Saber for that sexy pizzazz. I was actually gonna use them until I reached a mini boss or a Maverick room, because you actually are forced to switch back to X once you reach that point. Okay, fair. I'll just explore around a segment of a level and see what I can get. Okay, what the actual fuck? I'm not even kidding. I'm not even trying to be funny. This is criminal. What the actual hell is this? Why is this here? So yeah, you can't grab any items at Zero, and that, in my opinion, makes them totally useless. There was actually one point where I accidentally died at Zero and he switched out with me again, but on the next level, he was still unavailable. Next level, unavailable again. Holy crap, I killed him. I lost him for good. I had to restart the game, but since I can't grab any items with him, he might as well stay dead. I haven't switched out with him since. So, just sum it all up, there's a lot about this game that I tried to experiment with, but all the fundamentals that X1 and X2 did just fine before are broken here. I want it out. I'm gonna be straight up honest with y'all. I wanted to be done with the game. I hardly had any fun with this. Even collecting the tanks and parts felt bittersweet. It was way too easy to mess up. I was stuck for hours scavenging for parts and tanks, and the enemy placements and my weak ass bitch self made it almost impossible to fill up my sub tanks. I had to play carefully, but even sticking around for too long could get me killed. And guess what? It did. Right around the end, I found a cheap password that only gives me the Z-Saber to use in the final fortress, and that's what well, let's just say I have no shame. Shut up, I want to beat this game already! X3 definitely had a lot of ambition coming from a separate company, but cheap mechanics only made it even more frustrating. Approach this game with caution, but honestly, just play X1 and X2. The games are hard, but cheap and rewarding. You won't pull your hair out, guys. You won't rage into the sun, and I'm done with X3 and I'm still mad! Anyway, that was my hot take, my game take. I hope y'all have a fantastic day, and I'll get even funkier next time. Ciao. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching too. Subscribe and punch that bell. That's all you gotta do.
Don't forget social media.
We could use your help.
Links are down below, but now we gotta hit the road.